Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
On Monday, James, felt a little bit like end of the school year and all that, a bit more like, but I feel a little bit, this week's been a monster week for a lot of people, and so a little bit of momentum going into the last 3 game weeks. I think a lot of people that might have been behind in mini leagues might have caught up a lot of points and so on and so on. 105 points. Game week rank 1.4 million.
Yeah, listen,
it's incredible.
There's a lot of people who've been winning in leagues and just fucked it up.
Yeah.
There's always a winner and a loser, I'm afraid, Suj.
Yeah.
I'm definitely in the loser camp this week, mate.
I'm just looking here. My overall rank. No. What's going on here? That's your overall rank. Why is it showing me?
Yeah, don't look at mine, mate.
I was checking my overall rank has gone up by 6,000 places after scoring 105 points.
Is that it?
479k. Mental game week, James. All I'm thinking, though, to be honest with you, in terms of the rest of the game, the wider game and all and what have you, great. That Salah goal yesterday, because had that Salah goal not gone in, the gap between us would have dropped to 28 points. It's now 38 points because you had the Salah captaincy. 38 feels a little bit too much to claw back in 3 game weeks. But at 28, I would have hoped to at least claw back 15 points on a free hit this week. And then 15 points going into the last 2 game weeks. I would have felt that I could have caught you if things had obviously panned out. But 38 makes it a little bit too much. 5 to 10 points, it's probably 10 points too much. But that Salah goal, all I was thinking before that went in was stay as it is because I'm going to catch this bastard. But I don't know. No, I don't know. It's a little that Salah goal made a big difference.
I have some good news for you before I tell you about my disastrous game week. The gap is 34 points.
Okay.
Because I've already taken a -4. I did it last night and literally see no reason to wait with a couple of price swings about to happen. So I'm in the same moves I said I'd probably do on Monday. So
I need to claw back 20 points on you this week.
And you're about to activate the free hit, right? As long as you actually fucking remember to activate it.
Listen, the chances of me forgetting are 0.
Are you sure?
No. But yes.
Please just activate it now.
0. I'm going to be playing my free hit this week. Do you know what? If you look back at it, we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID when football stopped last season. Obviously, the extra free transfers that everyone got. Even this year, people that have walked into scores of 120, 130 and so on this game week, we didn't know that Liverpool United was going to get thrown in, a triple game week was going to crop up. And so, it's been rock and roll.
It's amazing, actually, that the info you always get after double game weeks, I say always, but the majority of the time is double game weeks are a waste of time. They're always a letdown, right? And amazingly, the one that nobody knew what it would look like 10 days ago, it turned out to be the big absolute monster one. So for those on free hit this week, they've probably done extremely well. Or those who did take the chance on wildcarded in 34 or landed in a position where they could bench boost this week have had it absolutely mad. I'll give you a perfect example, Suj. So enablers going big. It wasn't just if you went for a United or Liverpool attacker this week, you literally could not miss. Every United attacker returned. Rashford, Greenwood, Cavani, whichever other one I've missed. Rashford, Fernandes. Oh yeah, that guy I don't own. Liverpool, Jota, Mane, Firmino, Salah. All double point returns, right? So if you went for 6 attackers from those 2 teams, you couldn't miss. Plus, you've got Trent from Liverpool as well, who's obviously gone big.
I had 5 players last night, James, and 4 out of 5 in the Liverpool United game returned. Trent, Jota, Fernandes, Wan-Bissaka. Luke Shaw was the only one that let the team down, mate. So 4 out of 5 last night. I was licking my lips.
Well, I had 2 players, including captain. They both scored, and I still went down further in rank. Unbelievable, right? But enablers, let me sum it up to you like this. I think if you were free hitting this week, it's absolutely conceivable that the players you'd have picked on the bench would have been Fraser Forster, cheapest potential playing goalkeeper at 4 million. Tyreek Mitchell, 3.8 million. You'd have probably left third on the bench. We probably thought he wasn't going to play for Palace, actually. But if you were free hitting, he would have been an absolute lot to be in that team. Nat Phillips, 4.1 Liverpool. Absolutely reasonable. He might have been part of that bench. And Emil Smith-Rowe, cheapest playing midfielder, 4.2. Those four players, Phillips, Mitchell, Smith-Rowe, Forster, 46 points.
It's fantastic. Now, I've looked at a few of the mini leagues that I'm in and so on and so on. A handful of people that I know played the triple captainship, and they did okay because generally the majority of people went on Bruno. A few punted on Mason Greenwood, who also did perfectly fine. But it was the bench boosters that I saw that did particularly well. I'm looking at your bench here, James. Forster, same as me, 10 points. Dallas, same as me,
like nearly
9
everyone.
points. Lingard was only a 1 pointer, but you had Rafinha on 4. I had Vidra on 5. So 24 points versus 25 points. Most people I've seen have had like sort of 25 plus on the bench. And it was the bench boosters ahead of the triple captainers that probably made the most ground this week.
So the team of the week, 200 points. And it's a real team. Like it's gone up to 142,000 in the world from about 400,000. 200 points, 50-point bench boost. And this wasn't bench boost shithousery. I think this person genuinely put their 4 weakest players on the bench. Forster, Smith-Rowe, there's 2 of those enablers. Rob Holding, who's also obviously a very cheap defender. And Seamus Coleman, 12-pointer, 50 points from that bench boost. Captain Fernandez got Greenwood, Salah, Jota, Calvert-Lewin, Vardy, Iheanacho, Alexander-Arnold, Dean, Mendy. The only person who didn't return was Luke Shaw.
Wow,
phenomenal.
Wow. I got 105 points. I had Castagne blank. I had Luke Shaw blank. I had Maddison blank. I had James Ward-Prowse blank. I had Harry Kane blank. 6 players blanked, and I still racked up 105 points. That's just the game week. These are the weeks that we love in FPL. It just brings back that random excitement.
So my best overall rank is 21,000. I am currently 100 points behind that. So you would think in 3 game weeks I will beat that total.
Correct.
If I don't, my rank is going to get worse quite clearly. I'm 300,000 in the world.
Yeah.
This game is getting much, much harder because the quality of player is getting so much better. So those, I keep saying it, those who have that mystique over top 10K, if you're top 10K at the moment, you are having an incredible season. If you're top 50K, you are having a brilliant season. If you're top 100K, you're still having a really, really good season. It's getting so much harder, partly because of the amount of content and information that's available and stuff. And people are learning and getting better, right? People are getting more experience. So fair kudos to anybody who's in the top 100K. If you're in the top 100K and you're thinking, oh, I normally finish top 10K, top 20K, I'm telling you, you're still having a great season. Like a really good season.
Yeah. And more than anything,
that benchmark of top 10K is ridiculously hard now to hit that. That's like top 10 in Sky Fantasy, I think now is where we're probably at with that. So well done to anybody who's doing really good. Interestingly, in hindsight, you look at the week gone and you think, of course, any United Liverpool player attacking wise was basically worth a hit, nearly in every circumstance. But take my example of Fernandez, and I obviously would have captained him if I got him in, but it would have basically cost me to get him in and take him back out minus 12. Fernandez got 12 more points than Heung-min Son, and that's what I'd have been forcing this week to go down that move. So, okay, yeah, of course, you double his 19 points and it becomes absolutely worth it. But then you'd be removing, 13 points back off Salah's total. I'd only be about 6 points up if I'd have gone down that route. So, I mean, it had to go, this is why I didn't do it. It had to go really big, in my opinion. Salah, 26 points as captain is not a bad return. If you'd given me that before the week started, I'd have gone, yeah, that's okay. I'll live with that. So just the Fernandez great. It's the combination of so many popular players actually in a double game week doing well.
Yeah.
Quite often it doesn't happen, but this is why we always say bench boost in a double game week, etc. Now, none of us could have, we didn't even know 3 weeks ago if this was going to be double game week 35 or double game week 37, never mind who was going to be in it and that United would suddenly have a a treble. 2 weeks ago, Liverpool weren't meant to have a double this week, right? So the
No.
planning for it was so difficult. Anybody who's done well, I'm so pleased for you. Absolutely fire. Don't be embarrassed about posting your scores on Twitter, by the way. If you got 100 plus and you had a green arrow this week, you tell everyone about it.
And if you got
I didn't.
100 plus, if you got 100 plus and had a red arrow like our friend Fergie did, post that too. I think he did say 100 club
Unbelievable.
and red arrow achievement unlocked. But it just goes to show what 105 points for me is 1.4 million. So there are 1.399999 million people that scored more than 105 points this week. Mad.
Well, that's why, I mean, average 83 points is 1 point more than what I've got, but it doesn't tell the story, does it? I mean, the average in the top 10K was about 115, I think.
Fantastic. We're going to run down the games since our last pod on Monday. There have been 6 of them, but we'll rattle through them because we're now at that time of the season where it's all a bit... certain clubs we can just rule out. In addition to that, obviously, United, Leicester, Chelsea, Arsenal, and United again. They ain't got a game this week, so we're not really picking players from them. And then we'll have a quick look at my free hit. We'll have a look at Twitter, see what questions we've had in. And then we'll wrap it up because the deadline is in like about 10 hours or so.
By the time you listen to it, it's probably about 6.
Yeah. Fulham 0, Burnley 2. Goodbye, Fulham.
Yeah, shame. They really looked like a few months ago they were going to put proper pressure on teams, didn't they? Even think back to that night in game week 29 when Newcastle lost at Brighton. I don't think it was anybody that thought Fulham wouldn't finish above Newcastle, and look at the difference between the two clubs now.
Oh, scored.
Yeah, it's the same story for Fulham, right? Basically, this game became a story between what happened in the middle of the pitch outside the penalty area and what happened in it, because between both penalty boxes, Fulham played all right, like they normally do. But whenever they got the ball into the box, even when you thought, oh, that's a good ball in, or someone's missed, the first person missed it, whoever got it was like always a Burnley defender was always in place to clear the danger. And Fulham obviously lost out to a couple of key moments. And Chris Wood's goal was absolutely brilliant, but the first goals sort of shouldn't be conceding, really, just a straight diagonal over the top and stuff. So they cost themselves in both penalty boxes, and I think from that kind of onwards from game week 29, you think about the dropping of the points at Arsenal, Adama Traore's late goal from Wolves. I mean, you suddenly put those 3 points back on the board, and there's countless other occasions as well where they've played well, not got the result. Yeah. What I would say is they obviously need a rebuilding job because a lot of players are on loan and obviously going to go back to their parent clubs. But if Scott Parker does stay there and is able to rebuild the team and get good players from the Championship and overseas, I would imagine they'll come back because they do have some good players part of this squad still.
Scott Parker, I think, has done the best he could with the squad. He adapted the formation and the way the team played, and I think people generally, he's not really on the chopping block in my opinion, unless it's his choice that he wants to leave, because keeping him is their best chance of coming back up in my opinion as well. With Burnley playing Leeds this week, Leeds are in form. They're playing a high intensity game, which is similar to how we played against Burnley and moving the ball quickly and stuff, and we had success. I don't want to touch Burnley this week. I do think Leeds could go to Burnley now that Burnley are safe and probably will win. I'm more likely to pick Rafinha than I am a Burnley player. Fulham, on the other hand, are now relegated. They do have 3 games to go. But Southampton, that we'll talk about, obviously won their midweek game and were very energised, or Hasenhüttl definitely was, to finally, to show a bit of form. Southampton might look at this Fulham game at the weekend and say, you know what, it's a chance to try and build a little bit of momentum back, and we should be targeting this. These boys are relegated. Let's do them. So Danny Ings for me suddenly becomes a real interesting shout for free hit.
I agree with that massively, by the way. I think if I was free hitting this week, I'd have Danny Ings, I think. There's a good chance that they'll be more open now, just psychologically. There's less to hang on to, less to play for. So you might find that the Southampton...
Possibly more rotation we talked about, because the lone players might not get as much game time.
I also wouldn't be surprised if, with the pressure off as well, to actually score some more goals in these games. It would actually be quite ironic. But I think if you've got Southampton defensive, you're probably playing it. I think, in your case, free hit, Danny Ings, absolutely brilliant shout, particularly as well, most people won't be able to get to. It's probably only people that are selling Vardy And I've just sold Vardy and not gone for Danny Ings. So most people are not going to be able to get there. So I think he's a great shout for free hitters. I guess, to be honest, the main thing with Fulham is if you've got assets, you're probably not playing them, unless obviously you're short of players this week. So Ariola might be your goalkeeper or something. It's obviously absolutely fine. It's more about Manchester United is the link in the conversation, because Fulham obviously go there on Tuesday. And it's probably a case of, what do you do now with the United assets? Blanking, because those sitting there with sort of 3 United, 3 Leicester, and no free hit are obviously smashing out some hits. I think in that sort of situation, you've obviously been in the Leicester players first, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
United obviously have the attractive fixture on Tuesday against Fulham. And I guess, say in the case of Bruno Fernandes, you might have just bought him. You might now be thinking selling him. But if you want to captain him again or against Fulham on Tuesday, you'd be buying him back again. So how do you manage that? And I think a lot of people will possibly just end up keeping him, actually, ready to go for Tuesday. The other problem with United, which we'll get onto, in fact, we might as well just go straight into it, haven't we?
Yeah, that's the next game. I mean, they mass rotated in the Tuesday night game against Leicester, 10 changes, and ended up losing 2-1.
That team that played against Leicester, I think the team that plays against Wolves in game week 38 will be similar to that. And that's what you've got to be conscious of, I think, when you're selling players. Remember, that Wolves game is 3 days before the Europa League final. It literally means nothing. Even if they ended up finishing second, third, so what? They'll probably, one win against Fulham will probably secure them second, right? And I think it'd be a strong team against seconds, against Fulham. I would be surprised if Bruno didn't play and all that sort of thing. So I think they'll go strong against Fulham. One last game, 8 days rest before the Europa League final. I'm sure the likes of Fernandes and stuff will be on the bench at Wolves, possibly, but I'm being sanity to play them in that game. Really, I just would not get any purpose. Top 4 is 100% secure.
Yep.
I wouldn't see any purpose in those players playing. Greenwood obviously did play Tuesday, was the one who's been popular. And of course, he could get minutes against Fulham and I guess then play against Wolves if it's not intended for him to be in the starting lineup against in Europa League final against Villarreal. Plus, because of his age, it's obviously easier for him to cover, right? Recover from fatigue after games. He's still a baby. So he's probably the most likely player, I would say, to play United's last 2 games is Mason Greenwood. But I would look at it and go, that team that played Liverpool last night is probably the team that starts the Europa League final, subject to fitness, Harry Maguire, etc. And the team that played against Leicester will be similar to what played at Wolves. And obviously, if Maguire's not back for the Europa League final, he's probably not even going to play Bailly or Lindelof at Wolves. So, I mean, really is going to be probably quite a weak team in that final game. That's what you got to bear in mind. But I think for those who are still planning to captain Bruno against Fulham, and why would you overthink it, right? Of the popular teams, they'll have the best fixture. So there's every chance a lot of people will end up just benching him this week. Otherwise, you're selling and taking back again. I think those who've got the value massively in him, sort of $1 million up or so, are just going to bench him, aren't they? I think.
Yeah. Southampton beat Palace. I didn't watch this game. You watched this game?
Are we just saying sell Leicester assets? Is that where we're at?
Yeah. Move away now. I mean, the thing is, though, the question is, where do you think they are in terms of the race for top 4? Because they've gone back to 3rd now with Chelsea's defeat. They are 6 points clear of Liverpool with 2 games to play. It's 1 point secures them top 4 now. Leicester should be all right for top 4, right?
So I've still got 2 going into this week. I'm still going to have Fofana and Iheanacho. My intention is I'm not intended to play Fofana again. He'll probably sit 3rd sub for me in midweek, and he'll probably sit a 2nd sub for me in game week 38. That's probably where I'm at with it at the moment, but it's not worth thumping it around. I know the back 3 that I want to play in the last 2 games now, at least. Last 3 games. Iheanacho might end up staying for me, but my plan at the moment is to sell him for a forward in game week 37. With the midfield I got, I don't think it's worth me taking a hit to get someone else in this week. I can't go from Iheanacho to Ings, for example. I could go Iheanacho to Antonio, but then I'm leaving one of a very strong midfield 5 out and already taking a -4, so I don't feel like it's worth it. I'm pretty sure all 11 of my players are going to play minutes this week, even if they don't necessarily start. So I'm not sure it's worth it for me. So I think I'm going to wait, make a decision on what I do in midweek. My thinking was to go Callum Wilson. Originally, who's obviously now out for the season. It might be I still end up leaning on Antonio or Bamford or something like that when I come to midweek, quite possibly. But I think in most people's cases, it's sell, isn't it? As I said, if you're in that place where you've got sort of 6 players from Leicester, Man United, you're selling the Leicester players first, I think, and then working out how to sell the United players before game week 38. That's basically where you're at, I think.
I've got Maddison, Iheanacho, Castagne, and Maddison's the first that's going to be binned in 37. And then I'll take a view on Castagne and Iheanacho. It depends whether I want to use the money that I have in the bank to beef up my defense or beef up my attack. Either could, but I'm also happy to bench either Castagne or Iheanacho as well if I've got players with better fixtures.
I don't think Iheanacho is not the sort of player you want to bench.
Yeah,
I don't think. But to be honest, if I ended up for whatever reason rolling a transfer in midweek, even I would maybe have to bench him away to Chelsea purely on an all-in strategy because I'd probably play Rudiger as one of my back 3. But I think in most cases it's going to be bin now and forget. They did change to a back 4, which I think is good for them with Evans out. Evans hopeful making the FA Cup final, so could return again for the Chelsea game, but I'd be very surprised if anyone's now looking to buy Leicester players. It's probably just literally a question of sell or do you hold? And that's it.
So back to this Southampton 3, Palace 1. Did you see enough in the Southampton performance that gave you confidence to that for me anyway to buy any assets on the free hit? Or if you bought a James Ward-Prowse before this game week to hold? I mean, he didn't return and give anything, unfortunately.
I can tell you that no penalty save in the history of Premier League football has ever been more certain than Fraser Forster sitting on most people's FPL benches, saving that penalty. Absolute certainty.
Game week where both my keepers saved penalties, and man.
If I was going into Southampton, I would be Danny Ings.
Ings or nothing?
I wouldn't say Ings or nothing because, to be honest, the 3 fixtures are okay. You haven't been brilliant defensively in recent weeks, and obviously play you final day. Fulham, Leeds, West Ham, from an attacking perspective, are not the worst 3 fixtures at all. I'd be very surprised if Danny Ings played those 3 games and didn't score goals. So that's why I think he's very attractive. I think for free hitters, I agree with you, Suj. He'd definitely be in mine this week. I wouldn't even hate him as a captaincy shout this week. He looked sharp on Tuesday night. He's finishing so good. With respect to Southampton fans, I'd be very surprised if he's playing for them next year. I'm pretty sure he's going to go somewhere else.
The talk is, look, he's a Southampton fan. He wants to stay at the club. There's no need for us to sell him. The club are making certain noises, but yeah.
Unfortunately, they are a selling club. It's been proven for a long time. I mean, it's say if Kane left Tottenham, as I said to you previously, I'm so certain that's who Tottenham will go for as a replacement if Kane did leave. But that would be it. I think if you were going to Ward-Prowses and the stuff like that, you'd have done it last week. He doesn't appeal more than, say, going back in for Rafinha now, does he? At similar price. No, I think that moment's gone. Ryan Bertrand's leaving and at the end of his contract, at the end of the season, that's been announced. I think he's probably still likely to miss the remaining games as well. So you've got an issue at the left back position, which for those who are looking ahead, Rafinha or Harrison, maybe on Tuesday night, could have some fun against that. So it would be Ings or nothing for me. And Palace, again, you would have bought last week, wouldn't you? Most people, I mean, I bought Gator. I'm not unhappy with his 8 points, right? Those who bought Joel Ward, those who've held on to Mitchell. The disappointing one would have been our mate Wilf, right? 5 points. Even the assist he should have got. Obviously, Milivojevic missed the penalty. That's a really disappointing return from those 2 games. And how many times have we been here afterwards and go, Wilfred Zaha's disappointed at the end of a big period of fixtures for him? You wouldn't go and buy Palace now. You would have been doing it last week.
Yep. Let's talk about the Wednesday game. Chelsea 0, Arsenal 1.
You definitely won't be buying either of these 2 because they don't play at all.
No.
What a hilarious goal.
And, I mean, just what a hilarious game. Firstly, how annoying that Mendy was dropped. What does that mean?
I'm Rudiger. Hi.
Yeah, true. Well, I don't know if there's anything to take away from that in terms of the cup final. Was he just getting Kepa minutes before the cup final?
There was some rumours that went round that Mendy's going to play the cup final. Was what went round after the team was announced, because we'd spoken about this, haven't we? That Kepa was actually more likely to play after the final than before the final. But there's some rumours now that Mendy's going to play the final, and that's part why this has happened. Tuchel's comments after the game, some were bizarre. The idea that his team should have been 3-0 up by half time when they only had about 2 shots, I think, despite creating decent openings.
They were the better team throughout the game. Arsenal
started well, and then they sat off. How many times have I said to you about Arteta? There's something about him in big games. They've taken 6 points off Chelsea this year, 4 points off Manchester United. You can't believe that you'd look at that and go, so Arsenal took 10 points off Chelsea and Man United. There's something about the way he sets up tactically in big games that can work. And actually, it's about being more pragmatic is when it works. You think of those 4 games, kept clean sheets in 3 of them. So Arsenal seem to be at their best in big games when they're more pragmatic. Now, from an FPL perspective, it doesn't help in any way, because Palace and Brighton in the final 2 games, they're not going to play like that. But if Arteta does hang around, it's possibly something to keep in mind for next season. On the goal, the bizarre goal, I just want to say, my opinion of what happened was Jorginho is a player who's constantly looking around. He looks before he receives a pass. And he first received the pass and he looked over his shoulder. Kepa was in the goal. Then he was about to receive another pass and he looked. And as he looked, Kepa was still in the same place. And as he stopped looking, Kepa moved. And I'm not saying that Kepa shouldn't move, because Kepa was moving to make the right angle to then obviously be able to clear the ball and actually give Jorginho a bigger space to play it onto Kepa's right foot, so it was more comfortable for him to clear the ball, rather than the ball having to come across his body and perhaps have to clear it with his left foot. So no, Kepa wasn't wrong to move. And in Jorginho's opinion, he'd looked twice. And when he had that final little kind of sideways glance, Kepa was still between the posts. And just as he stops looking, Kepa moves. So that's where he thought Kepa was. And it was just such a calamity.
Yeah,
It's a brilliant goal.
It looked just worse than the reality of the situation. It probably Arsenal's still not going to get into Europe through the league, let's be honest. But Chelsea, are they catchable? Arsenal are not going to catch Liverpool or Spurs or West Ham.
Well, Arsenal could catch Tottenham or Everton and finish 7th, potentially.
Depending what happens, Conference League or whatever. Yeah.
Tottenham and Everton have both got good fixtures this week, and if they win them, that probably finishes that, to be honest. But they've still got a chance. If they win their 2 games, they'll have a shot of finishing 7th, possibly even 6th if West Ham fuck it up. In terms of the top 4, Liverpool win their 3 games, they're in the top 4. It's factual, mate. Honestly, it'd be absolutely factual from a goal difference perspective. So can Chelsea be caught? Well, yeah, they're the team at 4th, mate. They possibly need to beat Leicester on. I think if Chelsea don't beat Leicester on Tuesday, Liverpool will finish above them. Wow. So there's your context, mate. That game next Tuesday is absolutely huge. I've still got Rudiger. Obviously, he's not going to play for me this week. My intention is to play Rudiger in the final 2 fixtures. Just leave that be. That's fine. I think because of how important those fixtures are, I'm pretty sure that Rudiger's now going to play them. If Thiago Silva's fit, he's going to play. If Azpilicueta's fit, he's going to play. They're not going to fuck about with their team in the last 2 games. They might do a little bit in the attacking areas. I don't think they will defensively. So I think if you've got the likes of Rudiger, Azpilicueta, you are looking at them playing in the last 2 games. But they're not the easiest, right? Leicester at home, Villa with Grealish back.
Yeah,
we assume we'd be back starting by the time that comes around game week 38. Suddenly, that's not such an easy last 2, Chelsea. They could fuck it up, but then they could win the Champions League final and get in anyway.
Yeah.
Arsenal, I wouldn't be buying, personally. Their last 2 look attractive, and obviously someone like Smith Rowe or Rob Holding's going to facilitate. They switch system as well, played a back 3, and I think they might continue with that in the final 2 games, which certainly does increase the prospects of Rob Holding playing in those final 2 games, for example. I think if you've got Bernd Leno, you've probably got the indication now that he's going to play those last 2 games, unless in the final game. Oh, obviously Ryan can't play against Brighton, can he?
No.
So Leno will definitely play against Brighton. I'd be amazed if Ryan played against Palace. So Leno should play the last 2 games if you've got.
Aston Villa 0, Everton 0. We waited how many months for the rearrangement of a 0-0 draw?
we did a podcast on Patreon on Wednesday about a TV blackout in 1985 when no football was shown. No Premier League, it was First Division then. No top flight football was shown in England. Not even goals, no highlights, nothing. It was a complete blackout. There was nothing. And it got me thinking after we'd done it about games in the final season of the First Division before the Premier League was formed. And I always remember really looking forward to a game between Aston Villa and Everton when you only got about 10 live games a season or something. It was on a Sunday and Everton rocked up at Villa Park in yellow. And it was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. I was like, I've waited a month for this. Fucking terrible. 0-0 it was. And as soon as I started watching the game and saw Everton turn up in yellow, it was all I could think about through the whole game. Good returns for those who've obviously got the likes of Luca Dean, etc. It's worked out well. Even players from Villa, Everton, Martinez, Konsa, Dean, Calvert-Lewin scored on Sunday. You've had decent returns from Jordan Pickford, 2 clean sheets. You've had decent returns from players within this fixture. I saw a lot of people on the timeline last night were like, I'm praying for a 0-0. Oh my God, I actually got it. Incredible. Neither side's quite right at the moment. Villa have obviously got nothing to play for now, which you should be conscious of for their final 3 fixtures. I wouldn't see anybody taking a punt on Grealish for the final 3. I'd be surprised if he started at Palace on Sunday. I found his mood. When he came on, he was fine, by the way. But prior to that, he didn't look like he was interested. He was sitting there with his feet up on the chairs and stuff.
But is that not just the way he is?
But you would have thought like he'd been so... It was like someone said to him, go and warm up. And it was like, oh, do I have to? Genuinely, that's how it looked. And he's the captain of the team. I think he's off, isn't he?
Yes. we thought that last season, and obviously he signed and then came out of this season like a train. So I think this is the season he is going to go. What
Everton give us this week is a little bit of a rarity. A team that's just had a double, who's quite right to still go and target this week. So they've got Sheffield United at home. I've bought Calvert-Lewin. My intention is actually to captain him as well. For Vardy. My intention is to captain him as well. I just cannot look beyond the fact that they're playing Sheffield United. I'm not interested in their poor home record, lack of creativity, etc. Sheffield United for me is a different game to any other at the moment. And having watched a few of their away games, including how they played at Tottenham a couple of weeks ago, Everton will create chances for Calvert-Lewin. It's an absolute certainty. So I'm going to captain DCL. I think those who are looking to come off, say, Leicester assets, I mean, how could I turn around to anyone who was saying selling Vardy and Fofana or something, and they said, I want to take a -4 for Dean and Calvert-Lewin? Like, you are not going to get a no from me. Absolutely not. So I think of the teams that are doubled and now playing again, Everton are by far the most interesting for this weekend. If you've got assets, you're obviously definitely playing them. There's a decent fixture against Wolves in midweek as well, so you can carry that into the next fixture. Obviously, it's City away in the final game. So you might just, if you're going for Luca Dean, for example, you might just want to be a little bit conscious of what you're doing final day. Similarly, myself for Calvert-Lewin, it could be that Calvert-Lewin's literally coming in for the 2 games and I'll swap him again for someone else in game week 38. It's quite possible. You just need to be a little bit conscious of the final day if you're bringing in Everton assets. But otherwise, I'm not going to tell anyone don't buy an Everton asset this week.
No.
But I would still say the same. So Dean and Calvert-Lewin, don't overthink it. There could definitely be rotation in the defensive positions. People like Coleman, Godfrey, Keane, all these guys would not surprise me if there was a little bit of rotation there. Luca Dean won't be one of them. I'm fairly certain of that.
Let's talk about the last game. Manchester United 2, Liverpool 4.
Great game, wasn't it? Unusually for this fixture.
And I was listening to 5 Live before the game, and they said there's one thing that we do know is that they're going to be goals because both teams defensively have been conceding. So a 0-0 is the last thing on the cards. Didn't expect 6 goals in the end. Liverpool are now the only team unbeaten in the last 5 in the Premier League. They are gathering some rhythm. Trent now 50 points in his last 7 weeks. That's pretty decent, averaging 7 a week. He's been doing particularly well.
I think the stats are actually sound a bit better than that, because I think it's plus 60 in his last actual 7 appearances.
Right.
So I think it's even better than that sounds if you actually look at specific games.
Yeah. So, he's in form. Wan-Bissaka, for me, ended up being such a good lastminute.com decision over Maguire. It literally, the only reason I made that decision was well, what else am I going to do with my money? And
Oh, brilliant! What a great FPL player you are.
and Wan-Bissaka's got more points than Maguire so far this season, and it's 0.2 difference. What else am I going to do with the money? Nothing. So just get the better player, the player that scored more points this season. It made sense to me.
Some of us who bought Harry Maguire last week were thinking there's a possibility of 3 games there. As I said to you, when I bought him, I could have captained him as well, right? So it could have been so much worse for me as well. Maguire's obviously the defender I've sold this week. I find it very unlikely that he'll play in the Premier League. I think he could still make the Europa League final, but be very surprised if he plays in the league. So he's gone. I bought Trent. No overthinking it. That was the plan I had on Monday. I've still followed through with that. I think the game became really open for a number of reasons, one of which is obviously the centre-backs of both teams. I think United took the approach, which you don't normally do in a lot of these games, of without Maguire, we don't want to be under too much pressure in this game. So let's use our attacking players. I think it was the same for Liverpool. There was no point inviting pressure once they got 2-1 and 3-1 up, because you don't want to put pressure on those 2 kids at centre-back, who, when you get at them, I mean, Reece Williams might develop into a good player. Nat Phillips has done pretty well for Liverpool, but I'm not convinced he's even Premier League standard. They've done quite well to manage this little period with what they've got going on there. I think both the kids did fine, but if you get at them, they're in trouble. And you should be conscious of, we spoke about this on COTC yesterday with Dan at FPL Loco, our Liverpool correspondent. Those 3 games that Liverpool got left, they look amazing on paper. But in Diane, Wood and Benteke, the opposition all have powerful forwards, which if they pull onto Reece Williams is potentially going to be a problem for him. If they go up against Phillips, those battles are actually ideal for Nat Phillips. He'll love them. So there's pros and cons to that remaining schedule for what Liverpool have got defensively. I think the game became really open part because of that. And also United still trying to find the right position for Paul Pogba. And I just think naturally, obviously he went back into a deeper position later in the game, when they were chasing, which is the right thing to do. Just made the game so stretched. It was a really good watch. The right team won, in my opinion, no doubt about that. Liverpool looked at 3-1. You think like Jota at the post and stuff. They looked like they could go and get 4 or 5 potentially. It was a brief period there at the start of the second half where for 20 minutes, before Rashford scored, well, actually before Pogba went back deeper, that's as good as I've seen for Liverpool in a very long time, those 15 minutes or so. Very good.
Hi, it seemed to have a little bit more energy and clinicalness as well. Do you think Mane gets back into the team at the weekend? Is he just going to keep rotating the front 3 for a little while?
So did you see this incident after the game last night?
I have not.
Where Mane refused to shake Klopp's hand.
So
Klopp put his fist out to fist bump. I think it was Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay gave him a little fist bump, and then he opened his palm to kind of give like Mane a high five or something. And Mane had like a bit of string that he might have had around his sock or something, and he was undoing it, and he just threw that to the floor, and he was like, "No, fuck off." He was clearly telling Klopp to fuck off, and Klopp said that basically changed his mind on the team, and he didn't inform Mane in the right way. He basically took responsibility for it himself. So that can go one or two ways. The easiest thing to do is to kind of put it to bed would be to put Mane back in the team. Firmino had the rest against Southampton and obviously scored twice last night. So you think Firmino plays again, which means the only way Salah and Jota both play is if he decides to go with the 4 attackers. And considering how they played in the 4-3-3 last night, I'd be surprised if that happened. So I think one of Salah or Jota misses out this weekend. My instinct is it will probably be Jota. And I think that Salah probably won't start at Burnley on Wednesday. That's where I think it's at. But I would not be surprised if that goes the other way and it's Jota plays instead. Now, the thing with, I've got Salah and Jota. My thinking on it is, rather than we're talking about a -4, I could take the gamble, take a -4 to go to get another forward in, Bamford, Antonio or something, and could take the risk of leaving Jota on the bench, which if that's correct, is probably the right thing to do. But what if it goes the other way and it's Salah that's left out? That's a shitter. So the way I'm looking at it is those two players against an opposition like West Brom are more than capable of scoring in the last half hour of a game. But for me, that means a no captain Salah this weekend. And I think on the face of it, I think if I knew Salah was going to start, I probably would still captain him over Calvert-Lewin. But I really think there's a risk element in it. And I personally don't think I can afford that at the moment. I do think it's a big risk in captain. I would put Salah starting at about 65%. I don't think that's high enough for where I want a captain to be.
Yeah, I can understand that for sure. Right. So that's the games wrapped up. We need to have a quick talk about free hit this week, James.
It don't mean nothing to me. Off you go. I'm leaving now.
So there are 4 teams that I think have very good fixtures that I could go in an all-in strategy for. City away at Newcastle.
Yep.
The problem I have with City away at Newcastle is I trust in Pep's perseverance and where do I go? Spurs have a good game against Wolves, but really I'm only looking at Spurs from an attacking point of view, not a defensive point of view. Liverpool away at West Brom, I can go anywhere, but that's the kind of fill your boots with Salah's, Mane's and Jota's fixture. And Everton at home to Sheffield United is also a good fixture. But really, there's 2 standouts from that game, which is DCL and Luca Dean. I'm not really looking anywhere else. So it's now down to picking a formation. And my formation would either be a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2.
Why are you worrying about formation?
Well, that dictates which players I go for. So, for example, I can power into a very expensive midfield. But if I only pick 2 City assets, let's say Ederson and Cancelo, and I play a 3-4-3, my 5th midfielder will be Gundogan or Foden because they're so cheap. Like I can have cheap bench players from Liverpool and City to cover me off. Like even Jota as a 5th midfielder, I can still afford because if my front line is Ings, Calvert-Lewin / Antonio, again, I'm not spending big money on premiums here at the moment. So I'm torn. I don't actually see myself going with an all-in strategy of having a team with just those guys because also Danny Ings from Southampton has to have a shout in there as well. So at the moment, I'm looking at Ederson in goal. Ederson, Trent, Luca Dean are definitely in the team. Salah, Foden, Calvert-Lewin, Ings, or Calvert-Lewin or Antonio, Ings and Kane are definitely in the team.
You ain't free hitting and not having Calvert-Lewin this week. I don't believe that for a second.
So that means Antonio needs to be sacrificed. If I sacrifice Antonio, which I don't mind doing for Calvert-Lewin, then it means Jesse Lingard stays because I want some West Ham attacking coverage against Brighton.
Fine. The only reason for you not to go to Calvert-Lewin, let's think about it like this, right? So people say, oh, you've got to have Calvert-Lewin, for example. In your case, if your target is to catch me, what is it? We're saying 34 points difference at the moment. And I'm saying to you, I'm going to captain Calvert-Lewin. And I won't bullshit, right? I'll captain Dominic Calvert-Lewin. There's no point you having him unless you're just trying to block me and you're going to captain him again. That's the only case for you not to have Calvert-Lewin this week, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
You're not looking at Antonio at Brighton, even with Lewis Dunk suspended.
It's not,
and going, that's better. It's not.
No, that Sheffield United fixture just looks too good, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I could end up Ederson, Cancelo, Trent, Dean, Salah, Lingard, Calvert-Lewin, Ings, Kane, and then I've just got to find 2 midfielders. But budget is starting to now become an issue. So Phil Foden, I think, is worth a punt.
Phil Foden, I would definitely have a free hit this week. I think De Bruyne's absence, in terms of he obviously didn't start against Chelsea. I'd be very surprised if he didn't play in one of the wide positions, or even more likely, I could see Foden and Bernardo Silva playing those kind of 10 positions, if you will. I'd be very surprised if Phil Foden didn't start. I mean, that's the attacking player I'd most want to punt on tonight. I also think a little bit more risky, but Riyad Mahrez as well as a knock-on impact of that is also highly likely to start tonight. So I think if I was going City, I'd be looking at something like Foden, Mahrez, and possibly Stones, who obviously didn't play against Chelsea. And the beauty with John Stones, for example, is, it's probably only a 6-pointer, but goal from a set piece, and it obviously can be a 15-pointer very quickly. And obviously, if he doesn't start, he's probably not coming on. So you want to have a bench player that's going to cover you, right? So if you were only going 2 Liverpool players, for example, Nat Phillips, you'd sit him as first sub, wouldn't you? And he'll come in instead, something like that. Not to be honest, if you were going for Nat Phillips, though, with West Brom away, you'd probably start him, right? So these people like Phillips would really enable you. If you're concerned about, say, the Salah Jota thing, and you want to go different and go Mane and Trent, then obviously Phillips would open you up the prospect to get a little bit more money in. For example, might allow you Son, for example, or Bale. I think Son and Bale on a free hit are they're both reasonable for the next 2 fixtures, by the way. I think a lot of people who are on Fernandes and looking to sell will naturally be drawn to Son or Bale. Bale's record in his last 4 home starts is mental. He's got 63 points in the last 4 home games that he started. So, and I realised even as much as I've slated Wolves the last couple of months, they're better than some of these teams Bale has done really well against. I get that. And Bale's not likely to get a hat-trick on Sunday. Neither is Heung-min Son. Neither is Harry Kane, by the way. But I think Bale's Son, if you can afford it, you'd want in. I think if I was free hitting this week, I'd want Gareth Bale as a part of it, probably.
You think you'd go Bale over
Son? I think in this fixture, possibly yes, actually. Because Wolves are not the sort of team that let you get in behind and have the one-on-ones and stuff. So I think on this one particular week, I'd probably say, yeah, Bale over Son. And again, if you're trying to catch me, I've got Son. I'm not buying Gareth Bale.
No, of course.
So there's your differential.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So Edison, it's morphing into a little bit of an all-in strategy. But Edison, TAA, Cancelo, Nat Phillips as a back 3. So that's 2 City, 2 Liverpool. Salah, Lingard, Foden, Bale, Calvert-Lewin, Ings, Kane. 3-4-3. Bench of Struijk.
Yeah, probably play. That's ideal. Yeah.
4 million. Balbuena, 4.1. I'm just looking for cheap bench fillers here. And I've got 4.7 for another midfielder. I'll just pick anyone, really.
Well, the only one I changed there, I mean, I'd change Balbuena to Mitchell. Give you an extra 0.3, won't it?
Yes, it will.
And then you can possibly force something in a bit better as a midfielder.
5 million for the 5th midfielder.
Well, that's your call. That bit I'm not going to decide for you. But yeah, Vitinha of Wolves. There you go.
I don't like the all. I don't like. See, the thing is, I'm going. It's go big or go home here now. If City and Liverpool don't keep clean sheets, my defensive points are out the window, and then I'm very reliant on my attack. My attack has Lingard and Foden, who are.
Did you take Luka Dean out?
Yeah, I did.
Fuck that, mate.
So then it means
I don't believe anyone would free hit this week without Luka Dean. I'm being serious.
Yeah, I mean his attacking returns haven't been there this season.
He's got 8 assists.
9 assists. Just 8 clean sheets.
Reality is, if he puts a cross on Calvert-Lewin's head tomorrow, or on Sunday night rather, is every chance it's a 12-pointer. That's reality, mate. And that's literally just in one moment, 12 points, bang, done. So, I mean, I'll definitely have... Dean and Calvert-Lewin would be absolute definites for me on a free hit. I understand it if you're trying to catch me not to maybe go with Calvert-Lewin. Luka Dean, absolutely, definitely. I can't get there, Suj. So, or at least I don't think I would have to take another -8 to get Dean in this week.
Yeah, I might have to sacrifice Edison. And rather than go with Edison as a goalkeeper, than end up going with a cheaper goalkeeper because he's quite expensive at 6.1, and that lets me just get the City defender that I want. You think Stones over Cancelo, do you?
Not particularly, but obviously Cancelo did play against Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
It could easily be Walker and Zinchenko in the fullback positions, couldn't it? And with Cancelo, you can't rule out the possibility he'll come on and it's the 1-pointer. Whereas I said in Stones' case, that's probably unlikely that he gets on the pitch, I should imagine, if he didn't start. So that's why purely I would prefer that personally for this particular game week. I would, yeah. I think Stones is the one to go for City defensively this week.
What's your thoughts on Gundogan? Because he's quite cheap.
Yeah, decent.
He might get minutes. He might end up. He might even sit on my bench.
He's been playing a little bit deeper recently, but obviously, City are likely to see a lot of the ball tonight against Newcastle. There's no doubt about that. So he probably will empty that space, and they'll feel they probably can, if assuming it's Rodri plays, probably leave him alone a little bit more. And obviously, we've seen prior in the season with De Bruyne out that Gundogan could, in theory, play one of those two kind of 10 positions, couldn't he?
But he could
and
end
he
up
could
with
play
false 9, mate.
exactly. He could play that, and he could play Rodri and Fernandinho in midfield. It's not impossible. He could even drop Bernardo Silva into a central midfield position if that's what he decides he wants to do. I don't think so, though, at the moment. I don't think he'll be looking to fuck that about ahead of the Champions League final, personally. So Gundogan would be a no for me. I think the attacking ones that would stand out would be Foden would be top choice for me, and then Mahrez.
Mm-hmm. So where I may need to make a sacrifice now to be able to get the squad I want will be Mo Salah, because at 12.7 he is expensive, and it means me making compromises elsewhere. So I could easily drop Salah down to Jota, and suddenly I'm not having to make compromises elsewhere. And I don't know if the Salah to Jota compromise is as bad as certain other compromises.
Who would you captain? Who's your plan to captain?
It's a tough one. Harry Kane.
Okay, interesting.
Home to Wolves.
Yeah, I might go Kane instead now. Jokes. No, I'll go Calvert-Lewin. I won't bullshit you, mate.
I think Harry Kane is probably the right option for me. Harry Kane's a sensible option.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have to just sacrifice Mo Salah is the one that I can't get to. There's always one player that you can't get to, right?
He could go big though, couldn't he?
Yeah, but anyone could, right? Jota could go big. I don't want to end up with one, or I'd rather have 11 solid players that I feel confident than end up with one or two crappy players just to make up the numbers.
Wouldn't you rather than name 11 solid players, wouldn't you rather have 6 or 7 that could go big?
No.
Yeah, I think you do, mate. Listen, look at that bench you're looking to put together there with the likes of Mitchell and stuff. Mitchell could keep clean sheet against Villa. They're not brilliant going. I know Watkins is obviously back for them on Sunday, but they're not brilliant going forward. You got him sit. He's going to sit third bench for you. You could play him, mate. You want to find the money.
Yeah. No, for me, no. My playing style is not that. My playing style is not go all in and what have you. But yeah, it's funny because I really was. I suppose the ultimate debate is all in or spread it around a little bit, and I think I'm going to end up spreading it around a little bit.
You know what I would do, don't you?
Go all in.
100%.
That's what you did on your wild card back in a few weeks ago. So yeah,
I would 100% go big or go home. Yeah, and I think that all in could still that can still include Danny Ings from Southampton, for example.
Of course,
but yeah, I would absolutely go for it. Yeah,
but that's the thing, right? I'll still have 2 Spurs, 2 Liverpool, 3 City, 2 Everton, and then an Ings and a Lingard.
I would on a free hit. I don't think I'd bother with West Ham. Personally,
it's a bit risky. I agree with you. I think West Ham is
Lingard away to Brighton, who've got, I think, since in 2021 been the 4th or 5th best team defensively. I know again Lewis Dunk's missing, and Joel Veltman's probably going to be missing again as well.
Yeah,
but they're still a good side, right? Are you really expecting Lingard away to Brighton to go off big? I don't have a problem playing him personally this week, but on a free hit, is that the best you can come up with away to Brighton? I don't think so, mate.
No. So let's see. I've still got a bit of tinkering to do, but I will have. I definitely think I'm going to end up with a 3-4-3 over anything else.
All right. Good luck.
Yeah. Indeed. Let's hope and see how it pans out. Should we look at some of the questions that we've had on Twitter?
Yes, sir.
It's not open. So yeah.
Open Twitter. That would be helpful.
Is your ticket and so on all sorted for the Spurs game next week?
Yes, I have a ticket for Wednesday. Was absolute murder buying one, but I intend just to go in the ground and go wherever I want, basically. If it's anything like it was at Wembley. So yes, I've got a ticket for Wednesday. So if you're expecting in-depth analysis of Wednesday's games next Thursday morning when we review Game Week 37, I'm afraid I'm going to be blagging it a little bit because I'm going to be at Tottenham.
So Late Riser says, yes, James, I have Kane on my free hit draft. Reckon I go one or both of your midfielders in addition. Requires a Mane punt sacrifice. So would you take Son and Bale and sacrifice Mane.
I know perennial late riser. There's no way he's not having Bale. If is he free hitting?
Yeah.
I don't believe there's any way he's not having Gareth Bale. I'm not telling him what to do, but I don't believe he's not going for Gareth Bale if he's free hitting. That man loves a differential, which is why I can understand why he'd like to go for Mane as well. And I think for him, it's probably the solution. Bale and Mane. Has he got to sacrifice Mane to go for a Spurs player?
Yes. No. He's got to sacrifice Mane to get both. So Mane would just sacrifice to have Son and Bale.
I would go Mane and Bale this week. Just this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting shout there. I think it'll be yeah. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, sod it, just go for it. It's 3 game weeks left of the season. What am I worried about?
I will remind you at this point that Heung-min Son's got about 225 FPL points or something. I think he's still got more than Mo Salah, I think.
Wildebeest Vancouver says, who's the best keeper to go with for the remaining 3 matches?
Meslier for me. Very straightforward.
Yeah, they've got decent.
We've not spoken about Leeds much. I mean, they're enough. You probably wouldn't on a free hit, but I actually think for those who are actually buying players this week, Leeds are the one that stand out the most. Now, I'm going into the game with Dallas and Rafinha, so I think away to Burnley, that's absolutely fine. I could well add, when I was talking about selling Ian Acho in 37, Bamford for Southampton and West Brom. It's probably Bamford and Antonio have the same last 2 fixtures, West Brom and Southampton. So I think it's likely to be one of those 2. I think if Antonio's fit, it's probably more likely to be him for me personally. But buying Leeds players, absolutely straightforward. I mean, imagine you going into this week with no Leeds or Liverpool defensively or something, and you've got people around about Maguire's value. I mean, Stuart Dallas, so obvious now. There's no way I'd be benching him in these last 3 games. My back 3 would be Dallas, Alexander-Arnold and Rudiger, and that's it now. Dallas, great shout. If people are struggling financially, I don't mind Alioski or even Llorente as alternatives for the final few games. Jack Harrison is a great alternative to Rafinha, but I think Rafinha in himself is now a differential. And I think you've just got a little bit more explosiveness, Rafinha, to go off. But Harrison will definitely start tomorrow at Burnley, and I don't think it's a guarantee that Rafinha will. And Bamford, of course, up front, great option. There's loads of Legion going to. In terms of the keeper, though, Meslier, I mean, the 3 corresponding fixtures, Burnley, Southampton, West Brom, kept clean sheets in all of them early in the season and scored 9 goals.
Yep. We have a question coming in from FPL_warrior. I think it's probably the last question of the show, James, because the others we have kind of sort of covered off, talking about the likes of Mahrez and so on and so on.
Yay.
With lots of hits floating around, is this a good week to take a -8 to target Everton, Leeds and Spurs?
Of course it is. Thing is as well, you know when we say sometimes it is a good week to have a bad week. Game week 35 was not it.
Yeah. Yes.
But in correlation to that, off the back of 35, you have to understand there's people that have gone into the week gone with, say, 3 United, 3 Leicester. That's 6 players before you even speak about Chelsea and Arsenal. And suddenly, people can't see the picture ahead. Suddenly going to be landing in this position now. I promise you, would have got sort of 7 players or so going into this week. And they probably are going to smash a -12 to get 4 players in. The majority of players are going to take a hit this week, I would have thought. So if you're not, you're already probably ahead of the curve on that. But I think how could I possibly not take a -4 to get Trent and Calvert-Lewin in for no one? It's going to be on a period. If I'm catching Calvert-Lewin as well, I'm 2 points up already, aren't I? You would think, unless I hit red cards or something. So yeah, it's a definite week for hits.
It is indeed. There we go, James. I mean, we've been talking for an hour already, and the deadline's in like literally.
Let's get it out then.
No time. Hope you enjoyed listening. Next week, and to be honest with you, next season there just won't be such a rush. I don't like these rush deadlines. I just want a bit of normality, mate. Play the season over the right number of weeks.
Happily, personally, I don't mind Friday night football. I'd happily bin Friday deadlines, though. I mean, remember as well, for Tuesday, guys, deadline for game week 37 will be 4:30 p.m. UK time. It's fucking early, isn't it? Shite, mate. You're going to go off people are going to be at work panicking and forgetting, aren't they? It's fairly obvious. Everyone's going back to work this week as well. Loads of people are going to forget their team for Tuesday.
Yes.
So deadline tonight is what, 6:30 p.m. UK time. Suj, I have one thing to say to you. Please activate that free hit, sir. But if you forget, I look forward to speaking to you about it on Monday.
Monday we'll be back with a full pod. Today, James will be live streaming at 5:30 on YouTube, youtube.com/Planet FPL deadline stream. The patrons, you'll get a differential show later this afternoon. And by that time, my free hit will be 99% locked in. In addition to that, obviously, we've got a few other announcements coming your way very soon as well. We have talked about the meetup that we're doing on the 24th of July with the boys from Who Got the Assist in FPL Surgery. More information's following with that. We're just finalizing a few details, but just locking down a couple of bits and pieces. It's going to be a good laugh. No tickets, no nothing, just a few pints with some friends. And also keep your eyes peeled for an announcement around the content that we'll be doing over the summer as well. Season ends in a week and a couple of days, mate. So we've got some news around that coming your way shortly too.
I can make one, which you don't even know yourself yet. So just don't worry, it doesn't impact Patreon.
It's all right.
Monday, you might think we're going into the final week of the season. Then yes, we are. But it will be the start of 12 consecutive days of Planet FPL content from Monday.
Lovely.
There will even be a podcast for you next Saturday.
Lovely. Sounds good. Keep it coming thick and fast. Most importantly right now, stay safe. Go and get vaccinated. Chat for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Good luck for the game week. Cue music, please, man, Sharp.